B-Day. Oh, B-Day. Who wouldn't want a shipment like this? Hello, welcome back. My name is Aladino, and together with my wife Maya, we are refitting a Cape George Cutter 36. Last week we finished the bulwarks, which was a big step. What seemed like a huge job was actually quite manageable, and I'm super happy how this went. And this week we got an amazing shipment that will quickly transform the boat. So our paint has arrived. Huge thanks to Epiphanes. We have an episode from a couple of weeks ago where we got samples from Epiphanes paint, different whites, and that was to decide which color we prefer. And now that we have decided, we have gotten the big shipment to actually apply the same color throughout the boat. And we have split our order into half of the cans glossy and half of the cans satin. Personally, we prefer a satin finish on the big visible surfaces like bulkheads, so you don't get too much gloss and glare, but we do apply the gloss basically everywhere else, inside lockers and underneath floorboards and stuff like that. I personally call this their best paint, but of course it depends on the application. We are using a 2-part polyurethane paint. This is really scratch resistant, really tough, really glossy, and has a really long life. But if you're putting it on a wooden boat, then it might be a little too hard. Then I would consider mono urethane paints more because they stay more flexible. But on a fiberglass boat, to me this is the absolute best. The question is it a luxury in the interior? It definitely is, but we put so much work into our boats, so the boat deserves only the best. So I'll actually divide them into satin and not satin now. And today we are cracking the first can open. The biggest job when it comes to painting is all the prep work. The paint is really the icing on the cake. There's a few things to keep in mind there as well, of course, but there is quite a bit of prep work. It's like with an iceberg. So in our case, on the interior of the hull, we have ripped away old fiberglass to get to the balsa insulation, which we have replaced a few sections. After that, we've glassed over everything again. Then we have faired the area. After that, we've used a high build primer from Total Boat, and that is just again another more precise fairing step. And then after that, we were ready for the paint. And of course, in between every step, there is quite a bit of sanding involved. So pretty much every surface on this boat has been sanded at least 3 times, if not 20. And some things here are pretty obvious. I vacuum like crazy, of course. What I also do after vacuuming is I use a tech rag. That's just to really wipe down the surface. Much more sticks to it than just what the vacuum nozzle can scrape up and suck up. Then I also degrease, that is against contamination, silicone remover, or acetone. Depending on what stage of the build you're at, you might be combining things, and if you touch mechanical hardware or drawer slides or stuff that have grease on them, you might have not thought about it while you're doing it, but then that grease gets moved around everywhere. So degreasing is also important. With this paint, the temperature is pretty critical. The warmer it is, the better it goes. Of course, there is also an upper limit. If it's really hot, then you need more thinner, because otherwise it just tacks up on you much quicker. So there is a sweet balance, which is best taken from the spec sheet. But yeah, more elevated temperatures are really preferable. So if it is still early springtime, closing up the area and putting in a heater is a good idea, and otherwise painting more in late spring to summer to get better results. Another pretty critical thing is the equipment, of course. I find that this is best applied by a foam roller. And Epiphany supplies those as well. Those work really, really well. Some protective equipment, of course. Now, with some paints, I use the full face mask. That's when it irritates the eyes as well, and it's always a good idea. With fresh filters, of course. And then a source of light is very important, that you see what you're working on. But then you're basically ready to rock and roll.
Good morning. Very gray, cold day out there. We've just been having a really long and rough winter this year. There has been very few days where it's felt anything close to spring. But hopefully one day soon we'll get there. Anyway, the heater has been on during the night so that the paint cures. And let's go have a look. I'm actually really interested to see what the satin finish paint looks like. And up here, oh nice. So it definitely does still have a shine to it. As you can see, the light is reflected, but it looks good. Very nice. I'm super happy with the color. I think the color is perfect. This, for contrast, was the pure white that we just had an extra can last year when we were on the boat, and we just slapped it on the wall there, but we might sand it and cover it with the better color. I don't know. That's really not a priority. Maybe another day. Not right now. But I love it. So second coat goes on today, then perhaps a third coat, then the tape comes off, and then it will really look good.
It's been a year now, maybe longer, since she felt the sunshine on her long hair. And she still got salt in her old sneakers, just a reminder that she used to have adventures. And she's in an office, sending correspondence to the queens of Sheba in their LA apartments. And she hears her heartbeat, slow and synthetic. She wants that rush, but she can't figure where to get it. And she thinks, I'm getting older by the minute. What's this life if I'm not brave enough to live it?
All right, here we go. A freshly painted head. I'm super happy with the color that we chose. I think it looks wonderful. It's just this, I mean, I know it's probably a little hard to really get an accurate picture from the video, but in person it's this lovely white with a warmish undertone. It's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And, so this is only 2 coats. Now the recommended is 3 coats, but if I'm being honest, it looks really good. I don't see any areas where you can see anything underneath.
It always depends on the substrate too, and we had a really thick coat of primer there, which helps.
Yeah, this was a really good primer coat. So we might leave it at this, but just so you all know that it is recommended free. But
yeah, and if you guys would go for ultimate perfection, then you would sand now with 300 to 400 grit after a day that it has cured, and then apply the last final coat, and then you really have a flat and perfect surface.
But we're not doing perfection. We're doing good enough, and
we're doing really nice.
And I would say that this is even better than good enough. Of course, I mean this is really lovely. But we're trying to put a boat in the water. We're not trying to create a masterpiece for a museum.
Both.
So.
Not for a museum.
So what do you think, Aladino? Do you think we can take the tapes off? Are you at all uncertain about wanting to do a third coat, or what do you think?
I want to have a look at it again.
Okay.
She moves like fire, and she isn't harmony. And she sees in colors, and she moves like fire, she isn't harmony.
By the way, yes, it is somewhat bothersome that this is a different color than this. Like I mentioned before, we just repainted this way back when we only had this color. I kind of wish we had waited, but anyhow, this is almost all getting covered up. We've got the counter here, so you're not really going to see any of this. There will also be cabinets. So basically the only time you're going to see this is if you open a cabinet, and I don't think it'll be a problem. So I know it's probably got some of you twitching that it's a slightly different color, but it will all be fine.
And if there's a visible spot, it's really easy to sand and paint over.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I really like the satin. I knew the terms in German. I don't know if again it's semi-gloss, if that's another in-between step of all the different glosses that exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, satin of course is an in-between, and I'm very happy about that. Cool.
And it is great to have a higher quality paint, because look what happens when you don't have a higher quality paint.
Yeah, exactly.
This, we have not touched the ceiling at all, and that's not happening right now, maybe in the future. But you can see, or can you see? Wait, it's too bright. I need to bring down the exposure. Yeah, you can see these cracks in the paint. Well, but that's everywhere in the old paint, and that was all over the bulkheads. That was everywhere in the old paint that was on the boat. And it used to be that when you stuck a piece of this blue painter's tape to the bulkhead, it would come away with paint on it. It's nice to have. Oh yeah, you can see the flecks coming off.
So yeah, these are all the holes that we filled, and we put duct tape underneath, of course. Not at the epoxy side, but then it removed paint everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's some of the reasons why we went through all the trouble, because the walls were indeed white at one point. But now they are white, with a really good, very tough scratch resistance and nice product.
Yeah.
So I think I'll remove the tape in here. It looks really good. And then later today I'll be adding a second coat in the chain locker that has only one coat as for now. It is a difficult place to paint in. And ideally I recommend removing the tape right after painting if you know that you got the results you wanted. That is because then the paint on the edge of the tape sometimes flows just a little bit, and it creates kind of like a rounded edge, which is really nice. But I mean, those are really details. Otherwise it's more of a crisp edge. We just wanted to get out of here, and we weren't sure if we want to add more coats or not, so this is how we did it now. And I'm just very careful removing the tape.
You know that I hate that tone in our voices.
Was that the final strip of tape?
Nice, it was. Cool. A couple more to go. But the head is really turning around already.
Yeah.
Nice.
And what about this saloon? Can I start painting that soon? What are your plans there?
You could start soon, yes. I wanted to transform it first with a little more woodwork.
Okay.
Because there might still be a little bit of tabbing.
Okay.
Also, it's a challenge to get the order of operations right. We started painting the V-berth and the head, but not the salon, and that is because we still had a few things to tab in place in the salon. It's good to do the fiberglassing first, which gets followed up by the fairing and then the painting, because otherwise if we start painting and then we have to abrade the surface again to get the fiberglass going. Sometimes that's how things need to happen, but if you can plan it out, then it's nicer to do one thing after the other. I'm really happy with how this paint is looking, not only the color we chose, but of course the quality of paint that it is, and the satin look on it makes it look really good. This is what we've worked so hard for, and so it is paying off now to have it all come together. Now I've got a bit of extra motivation to keep the interior moving on. And one area that still needs quite a bit of work before we start to paint is the galley.
Like to rise along the boulder, and I know we'll lose our ground sometimes, so I'll just hold a little tighter. 'Cause this ain't good, it's great, and this ain't right, it's right.
We are certainly both food lovers, so we do spend a lot of time in the galley, and so we're trying to fit the biggest appliances possible and to make it a practical and comfortable kitchen to work in. So I looked up a few measurements of stoves and sinks and all the appliances that we need in here. And now I can start making templates and actually start make partitions to have the whole cabinetry move along in here.
Staring at the phone with the world outside. Don't think I'd notice if the street was on fire. If the sky was falling, I'd be on my own time. Turn back the clock and watch the day unwind. I'll get where I'm going when I get there, but I ain't in a rush to be anywhere. No stress, I'm living my life. I'm feeling alright, I'm feeling alright. So blessed, I'm doing just fine. I'm feeling alright, I'm feeling alright. Walking through the city with the sun on my face. Man on a mission, just lost in space. Life's a little tricky when
Cool. Yeah, this teak post is what our friend Ken helped us to create. Or helped us, I mean, he created it. We just watched in awe, but that's super nice. And there's this gap here so that we can put some teak paneling in. This will come together.
Since we had to rip it all up here, we decided that we were going to apply a few changes also. The old stove that we have, I believe, was a really good one and a real luxury. A huge stove. It was very long. It had 3 burners, if not more. But we want to modernize and we want to add one with more built-in safety features, thermocouplers and all of that. Maybe it could be retrofitted into an old stove, but the old stove also had a very odd measurement and it was incredibly wide. That means that it left us with almost no counter space in this galley, so we opted to go for a newer stove, which has more of the normal dimension, like all of the stoves nowadays, so it can be interchanged with any other two at any point. And it would allow us more counter space, which also will translate into a bigger fridge. So, I mean, now you can see it already, but basically this cabinet where the sink will be is staying the same. And now this here is where the stove will be. And we've added the nice corner here, and this basically will be the fridge.
Yay.
Yeah. We are, as much as possible, trying to reuse material that we have in here, for example the teak plywood, but it's not possible everywhere, so some partitions in the galley have to be made from scratch. this is the engine room door, and before it had a piece going out here, so it was a massive piece to move around. So I've actually cut it right here at the corner, and the idea is to actually place 2 hinges here on the other side though, and then have it open as a door. But yeah, things not being level, as I said, make it a little bit challenging. Anyway, there's many ways around things, so let's just get started, and then I'll show you better what I mean here.
Okay.
So yesterday I've glued on this piece of teak because the cabinet ended here first. So this is going to be the cleat that holds this piece of the cabinet onto the fridge wall, so to speak. So first thing for me is to install this cleat onto here.
So one of our goals is to use as much of the original material as we can do on the boat. It doesn't make sense to go out and buy new material if we don't have to. Sometimes that means like kind of customizing it or changing it, which is basically what Aladino's doing now. But I think it is nice to use, like this was old teak plywood on the boat, there's no reason to not use it.
Well, and we're only doing it to save time and money, but not because in other instances you do so because you want to preserve the soul of the boat, because it is a wooden classic or something, and you try to keep it similar. Nope.
This boat didn't have a soul. No, I'm kidding, but like it wasn't like a fine piece of craftsmanship, the interior, when we got it. So we don't feel particularly precious about like preserving the boat's soul in that sense.
It was really challenging to actually have the engine room compartment open up as I theoretically wanted to. Nothing is square on this boat. The boat is not level. Even it looks like the cockpit walls are parallel, so I thought that the continuation of that would also be somewhat parallel and square, but they're not. They're narrower on the aft end, and they taper open as they go along. So I was really worried to actually have the door swing open. Alright, so the cut is made, the hinges are in. That's what it does. But yeah, as we said, fingers crossed that it shall do what it should on the boat as well. Shall we bring it up and see?
Yeah. Perfect fit.
Well, that's not the thing in question yet.
Oh, wait, what's the thing in question?
That nothing is level. I cannot work with squares or things. So the thing is that this panel was leaning forward a little bit. So I made the cut in a slight diagonal in the hopes that that would lift this end a little bit as I open it. If I would have made it square, the cut, then it would scrape the floor. Yeah. So yeah, one challenge we're facing is that the boat isn't exactly level. We were not here when it was parked in the workshop. It was during COVID, it was lockdown, and we were in France. And they already had so much work that I didn't want to give them extra work. They did place it close enough, but when it comes to things like this, it really matters. And when I worked in the boatyard, we have also adjusted the boat on its stands afterwards, but I've never done it on a boat this heavy, and we don't have a backup plan if it goes wrong. We don't have cranes overhead, there is a roof, so if something goes wrong, then they would literally have to drag it out with a tractor to be able to lift it again. So we're not trying it. So yeah, that's all to say that I just have to improvise a little more and use different tricks and just a lot of referencing off of other parts. So yeah, that's why dodgy cabinetry.
So is this the moment of truth? We see if it opens?
Unfortunately.
Take the cardboard off the ground?
I am very skeptical.
Well, but wait, Dean, if it doesn't open, can't you just like shave a little off the bottom?
Oh yeah, the thing is that this cut is made, so I can change this one easily. So hopefully it's not too screwed up. What I can always do is cut off a little from the bottom and then place a little teak step that it notches into. So there's always a plan B, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it.
Okay, moment of truth.
Or plan C.
Go, Deanie, go.
We watch television now more often than ever. There's always a little moment of suspense, or an ad in between, before things like this.
Da-da-da-da.
Holy guacamole. Holy. Wow, this is perfection.
Aladino, why do you ever doubt yourself?
Because nothing's level on here. Wow. Wow, wait a second. Wow. Are you serious? Alright, that's how far it's going. But you see, the gap here is bigger than the gap at the bottom, so it's touching at the bottom, but I didn't want it to open more than this. Wow, now I can dive into the engine room. No, there's gonna be a big hunk of metal here. Yeah, but I did well, and I also got lucky, so it worked out really nicely. So I knew that I could still jerry-rig something or make it work in a different way if it wouldn't work right away. I certainly wasn't confident, so when it did work out as perfectly as it did, I was really, really happy.
I feel pretty good about what's happening in the boat. Things have really come along in the interior, and it's all happening. So the galley is roughed out, and of course, aesthetically it's going to improve a lot in the future, but we're getting a rough idea of where things are going to be and how it's all set up. And we've also put a stove on order. We ordered a Force 10 American compact stove, and that's all going to happen as well. Aladino made a template actually for the box. I can't remember if we filmed that. Did you film that when you made it?
I don't know if it was for patrons or for video.
I know.
We have filmed it,
lost. We'll show you that in just a moment. And then, of course, the paint. I'm just so thrilled to have some paint on the boat. It's just everything's looking better. And so, as always, a huge thank you for watching. This episode is going to come to a close, but as always, we will be back next Friday. Extra big thanks to our patrons for helping to keep this channel alive. We really appreciate it. And we do publish real-time walkthroughs of the boat on Patreon every Tuesday or Wednesday, so there are weekly updates which are never published anywhere else. You can become a patron for as little as $2 a month. It's very flexible how you sign up, so you can decide to support one video a month, or all 4 videos a month, however you decide to do it. So lots of flexibility. And we're just, again, very appreciative. Extra big thanks to the folks whose names are now appearing on screen for always going above and beyond to make sure this project goes all the way to the end. And we'll see you all next Friday. Nice. Thanks, Amari.
Yay! You want victory lap, don't you?
Yes. Do I get one?
No. But I love you.